Uh, okay, welcome to this class. And the module is business resources. And I'm going to just upload or share with you my slides. So I'll keep my video on just in case you want to see me. So we're going to talk about business resources as part of this business management program. Tomorrow, I'll show you a bit more context about what the other modules are and where they fit, but we'll just get into this today. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about business and organizations. My own background is I used to be a teacher. Like you, I was a teacher when I first left college a long time ago. And I used to teach accounting and finance and business. And then I left teaching and I went to work in the not-for-profit sector. So you're processing information as well, work in the not-for-profit sector, but then also as a consultant in the banking sector. So I've done some work with a couple of big banks around Europe, as well as consulted with, I still do consulting projects with lots of different organizations. And in the meantime, I work in the not-for-profit sector. So at the moment, currently, I'm running an environmental NGO, as well as lecturing in Dublin and teaching here online. So my experience and my subjects are all concerned business. So I'm very interested in how we get things done, how we build organizations, how we deliver value, how we develop and deliver products and services, and how we get the whole thing to work, right? So that's sort of where I'm coming from. So I'm going to try and bring in lots of different examples as we talk about some key concepts. And I'm going to try and get you guys doing things as well. First thing is, in all of my classes, the most important rule is there's no such thing as a bad question. So if you have a question at any point, please do not hesitate either to put your hand up or to speak out or use the chat box. Okay, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat box as we go along. So there's absolutely no such thing as a bad question. I think questions are really, really important. So if you're not sure about anything, just ask me a question. Secondly, I'm going to ask you guys questions. So this works better, as you guys who are teaching will know, if we have interaction. So please feel free to speak up to answer questions or to submit answers in the chat box as you've been doing. And we will read back and forth between those and use that sort of analysis. Okay, is everybody okay with that? You'll see me drinking coffee a lot, but that's beside the point. All right, so I should also say, by the way, that I'm in Ireland. I'm from Ireland, which is it's the last stop before you get to America if you're going west. So next door to us, we've got the United Kingdom. We will talk a bit about the United Kingdom occasionally because they're having great fun at the moment with Brexit and other things, and those are very relevant to business. But also we're part of the European Union, so the EU, which is quite an interesting concept, and we'll talk a bit about that at some point too. All right. First off, what are we looking at in the picture? SpaceX, that's right, and it's a launch, isn't it? What type of rocket is it? It's actually the Falcon Heavy, right? So most SpaceX rockets are not Falcon Heavies. They've only done about 3 or 4 Falcon Heavies. The vast majority of them are the Falcon 9, okay? Don't worry about that distinction. What is it that makes SpaceX very interesting? That's the thing that really excites me, or it just blows my mind. SpaceX is the first company, the first organization to figure out how not to make a rocket a single-use only product, because they've worked out how to land a rocket and reuse it. The reason that's important is SpaceX has gone from being a startup about 20 years ago. Now it has about 60%, maybe more, of the space launch business, and it is an industry. And SpaceX is by far the leading launch business, launch organization. Yes, NASA might be longer established, might be bigger, might have more money, might be doing different things, but NASA is an exploration agency. SpaceX is a company, okay? So we're going to look a little bit about that, but also other technology and other interesting companies as we go forward. We'll talk a bit more about SpaceX in a minute. But the title of this slide, or the title of this class, is Factors of Production. So we're going to opening our discussion on business and business management with a focus on business resources. What are the things that we use in business, and why do we use them? What are the factors of production, and how do we bring them to bear? And why do we bring them to bear? Okay, so that's what we're going to be focusing on. Now, there's a whole area of this, a whole area of your level 3 module, of your level 3 program, which is concerned with the market. We are going to look at the market later on, but not in this module. So we will talk about marketing, we will talk about customers, we will talk about all of that sort of stuff. And in essence, every organization should have an awareness of its market, its service users, whether it's for profit, whether it's a state body, whether it's a not-for-profit organization. So we'll deal with all of that, but we're going to start with business resources, the factors of production. Okay? And while we sometimes think production really goes on here, actually, production is all of these elements. Okay? They might be sequential, and they might be by different organizations. All right, here we've got from previous classes. This here, I suppose, inputs, process, outputs. That's going to be quite interesting because we're going to come back to that time and again. And I suppose the idea is that what we're talking about is how we bring to bear different elements. Factories, people, raw materials, robotics, assembly lines, designs, even garbage, even the recycling aspect, teamwork. All of these things come together to enable production. So if we talk about, the title of this is Factors of Production, we're talking about the resources that we bring to bear on producing a product, providing a service, delivering value for a customer or a service user. That's what we're concerned about, right? It's what are the things that we can bring together and what can we do with them? What can we do with them? So, for example, how many of you, who drinks coffee? Does anybody frequent Starbucks or a coffee house? Coffee store? Yes, yeah, Roseanne, yeah. That's almost mandatory, isn't it, these days? Right? Everybody needs their fix. So if you go to a Starbucks or some other coffee chain, okay, and so have you all had this experience? You go in, you order a drink, you go to the end of the counter and you get the drink. So it could be a cappuccino, a macchiato, a frappuccino, a black coffee. It could be a tea. Have you all got some sort of experience of that, or know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay, that's production. If you think about it, the raw materials there are the coffee beans, the grounds, which are ground out of coffee beans, which are roasted, which are harvested and dried way somewhere else, somewhere way back, or maybe somewhere close, I don't know. But they come through a process until they're in bags and they're packaged and they're available. And the customer comes into the store and you say, I would like an Americano, I would like a latte. And Starbucks is the example. I mean, I don't personally like Starbucks, so it's just not my thing, but I've been in it and I've seen it. And they take your name and they write your name on the cup sometimes, and they goes to the next person who works the barista machine with those ground coffees, and they work the machine that's been built in a factory and has been purchased by Starbucks or by the franchise, because Starbucks may be a franchise, and installed it here and hooked it up to the water main, water services, and they create your coffee and they give it to you at the end of the count, okay? After you've paid for it, of course, right? So that's production in action. Anybody been to get their hair cut, styled, anything like that? Or got their nails done in a beauty salon, right? Or got your hair done in a barber's or whatever, okay? It's the same thing. If you go in and you get your hair cut, right, somebody is providing you with a service. They're wielding the weapon, the scissors, on your head, and they're shaping your hair the way you want to do it. Or if they're painting your nails, they're painting your nails. If you go to get fitted for a suit, okay, or a dress, and somebody takes your measurements, let's say you're going to a wedding or whatever, somebody takes your measurements and they create a product for you. All of these are production, okay? And we use factors of production in any one of these examples, any one of these scenarios. In some cases, it's, I mean, let's be honest, in a lot of cases, we're seeing more and more robotics and machinery involved, which is great for efficiency and accuracy, but it costs money to set up. And we see all of these things. Possibly the best example that I come back to a lot is a restaurant. If we talk about food that's produced and supplied in a restaurant. So are there any McDonald's victims here? Anybody who's eaten in a McDonald's restaurant? Okay, yeah, I think we probably all have. I mean, look, we know it's not very good for you, but we've all had the guilty pleasure, okay? McDonald's is a factory, if you think about it. When you go into McDonald's and you order a Big Mac or a chicken sandwich, or you just a fries, do they start making your food when you ask for it? No, you're right, they don't. It's already in process. It may already have been produced. They're relying on a different type of model, and they're producing in advance based on what they expect people to come through the door. Okay? So it's a different type of approach than if you go to a local family restaurant and you sit down and you order food and they make it and they bring it to you. You're getting the same product in one sense in that it's prepared food, but it's done in a completely different way, isn't it? So that's what we kind of want to investigate, how different businesses do different things in different ways. Okay, whose car is this? Astronaut's car, yeah. Yeah. But it's actually somebody's Tesla. Whose Tesla is it? Any idea? Yeah, that's exactly right. It's his Tesla. So let me just go to this here. And let me share this with you. Let's look at this here. Skip the ad. There's his car. This is the Falcon Heavy being assembled. This was a test 4 years ago now. A test.
Most space organizations, government or commercial, have set their sights too low. They've really built relatively small rockets. And Falcon Heavy is the first time that there's something that's arguably even in the super heavy class, or somewhere between heavy and super heavy. 5 million pounds of thrust is really crazy amount of power. More than twice as much payload as any other rocket in the world. It can launch things direct to Pluto. No stop needed.
Hotels in the area are completely sold out.
Yeah.
Parking lots are packed.
It's like the first time something exciting has happened in rocket launch in a very long time.
Falcon Heavy is configured for flight.
T-minus 15, standby for terminal count.
SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch.
10, 9,
All systems go. 3. Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
were watching this on YouTube at the time, okay? I mean, it's like a rock concert, a music concert. It's a rocket launch. Well, it's science, it's etc. Whatever. But it's kind of interesting for a couple of other reasons. One is you've got 3 rockets strapped together, and this sort of payload piece up front, which comes off of it. That's the target. Now that's the showbiz element. So this was Elon Musk's own Tesla Roadster. So Elon Musk, of course, is the guy who runs SpaceX and Tesla. 2 very interesting, related, but actually quite different organizations. But this was a publicity stunt in some ways. It's part of who he is and so on. But this was about testing and demonstrating the viability of being able to launch a heavy rocket with a heavy payload to space, to get more stuff up in space. Why am I talking about this when we should be talking about business resources? SpaceX is a business. In some ways, this is an advertisement for the business. But this is part of their R&D. They're developing this capability and they're showing how it can work. But this is only half of the point. Let's just roll the video on a bit further. By the way, it's not a real astronaut. At least I hope it's not. Get up there, son. Now, just on a bit. This is a computer generated. This is not the actual, but hopefully we'll see the actual now in a minute.
Their landing burns. Gotcha, I see it. Yeah, I got him. They're there. Oh my God, dude! You've got to be kidding me! What?
That's the bit that got me. The ability of this organization to define, design, develop, and build a capability to do that is pretty impressive. So these 2 rockets, these are the 2 side boosters. The third one was due to land on on a barge out to sea. So they brought these 2 back to Kennedy, the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, from where the rocket had been launched, and they landed these 2 boosters within seconds of each other on these 2 launch pads. So what that meant, now they'd already done it before with a single rocket, but this proved that they were able to do it with 2 at the same time. This is the making of SpaceX. Because they've figured out and they've conquered this ability to reuse rockets, to get them to land and to recycle those rockets. So now there's a rocket booster that's been used 10 times. And that to me is central to our story. What does it take to do that? What does it take? And why? Why is that important? Well, what business is SpaceX in? What business is SpaceX in? Where does SpaceX make its money? Yeah. SpaceX is a private limited company. It's not traded on any stock exchange. So it's owned by investors who are not trading their shares. Elon Musk being one of them. But who pays for SpaceX services? And what service are they providing? Well, it's actually a service. Because what do they do? What do they send up into space? Most of their launches are commercial. Even their launches to the space station are under contract for NASA. NASA pays SpaceX to send supplies to the space station. Most of their launches are commercial. They're launching satellites, they're launching supplies to the space station. They started sending astronauts to and from the space station. So they're providing a taxi service. Most of their launches are commercial, most of their satellites. A lot of the recent ones are Starlink satellites, which is part of this. It's a related business. Again, it's another Elon Musk business where they're creating these network of Starlink satellites so that your internet doesn't have to come from a hole in the wall or from a mobile beamer. It'll be space-based internet we'll be getting. So using Starlink, okay? But it's not just Starlink, it's other businesses that want satellites in space for research, for communications, for whatever reason. So they pay SpaceX to launch their satellites. And SpaceX is hoovering up that business because they figured out a way to reuse their rockets, which means that their cost per launch has come way down. So they've brought the cost per launch down by a factor of 10. Okay, so if it used to cost 100 million to launch a satellite, bringing that down to a cost of 10 million, if for example, that's what the launch cost is, that's what SpaceX is able to do. I don't know what the actual cost is, but they're able to do that because they're reusing these rockets and they're reusing them quickly. So they build a rocket, they use it, they bring it down, they refurbish it, they use it, they bring it down, they refurbish it, and so on. So they're getting much more value out of that product, out of that launch vehicle. In essence, that rocket is a bus, it's a truck, it's a taxi cab. And they're getting several uses out of it because they figured out the technology to get it to land, and they've designed it in such a way so that it's very reliable. And what does it take to do that? What are the factors of production that they need to be able to do that? So what does SpaceX need? What did they need to do that? Yeah, they need a bit of land, certainly. They need somewhere to do it. Yes, they need machines. They need labor. Yeah. And one other thing. Yes, capital, cash. There's three things really. People, cash, technology. Okay? Those are the factors of production. Yes, they need an entrepreneur who's Elon Musk as well. Absolutely, you need that too. But in one sense, the entrepreneur is using these factors of production to drive this business forward. It's the same thing with Tesla. It's the same thing with Apple, with Google, Facebook even, Twitter, TikTok, Zara stores, okay? Coca-Cola. It's the same thing. We have to bring people, cash, and technology to bear in different ways to create some sort of product or service that's of value to other people. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's what this module is about. So let me go back. Let me leave SpaceX alone for a minute. Okay, so we're back to the car. This here is a picture of mission control for SpaceX. Now, the reason I show this is you can see it. Of course, it's all technology and information driven, isn't it? It's also relatively small, isn't it? I mean, it just looks like a room. Okay, it's a big enough room, but it's with a bunch of people sitting at computer stations, which is vastly different to what we would have seen of NASA, NASA's control launch center back in the days of the space shuttle and so on. Partly because the technology has come on so much, right? So there's lots of stuff happening here, but this is the control room at SpaceX. So remember what I said, people, technology, and investment, cash, okay? So given all that, right, we could start with those things in terms of what does it take to start a business? Let's just start with technology, capital, cash, and people. Are there any other things that we need? Yes. Entrepreneur, yes, absolutely. Person with the idea, the drive, and let's say the stubbornness. Okay? Yeah, I mean, I think we could put land in there. We could put, well, I'll put land here. I'll put the place. Do you have to have a place to work from? Well, you kind of do if you've got people and equipment. Do they all have to be in the same place? No, not anymore. Okay. But yes, you do need, I mean, if we're going to have people working on something, they need to have somewhere to work. And historically, they've always been the same place, and still a lot of the cases. But now, for example, we're running this classroom, and you guys are all in your own place, and I'm in my place. So is there anything else we need? It's kind of related to the entrepreneur in some ways. Okay, so marketing / a target market. Yeah, I think that's part of it. If we're going to have a target market, what does that mean? Funds, absolutely. We got to have funds under capital cash funds. Got to have the money, the resources. But in terms of the target market, what is it that we really need? Yeah, supply materials around. But there's one key thing. Yes, demand, the problem. Okay, demand or a problem. Because if there's a problem, what that's likely to mean is that there may be a paying customer. Now, what do I mean by that? What I'm saying is that what a paying customer means that someone has a problem and is willing to pay for a solution. Yeah, which creates demand. So I really need a coffee. If I'm walking down the street, I really need a coffee, and there's a Starbucks or there's an Insomnia coffee shop or there's something, that's my solution potentially. If I really need a pair of Nike Air Jordans, right, because I just want to be cool, you know, I can't really buy Adidas, that has to be Nike Air. Maybe that's what I need, okay? So I'm a paying customer for that particular product. If I'm not that fancy about brands, any pair of sneakers will do, okay? But ultimately, there needs to be a problem, as you put it, a problem or a need, and that need generates demand. And if there's demand, we then bring our cash, our technology, and our people together to provide a solution. And if that person is willing to pay for it, then we have a business. That's what we're concerned with. That's what we're talking about. So in this module, we're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to look at resources, in particular in three ways. So resources, business resources are an economic or productive factor which are required to accomplish an activity, to undertake an enterprise and achieve a desired outcome. Traditionally, we talk about land, labor, and capital. Okay, that's traditionally land, labor, and capital. Land because we have to grow something, okay, or farm something, or mine something. But let's think beyond that. It's not just land. It's people, it's funding, and it's more technology. In this day and age, technology starts to become important. Now that technology may be grounded in or based on something that we grow or we harvest or we mine, or it can be some sort of derivative of that, which is assembly of productive machinery, etc. Okay, so let's not get caught up in whether we're talking about land or labor or capital or entrepreneurship or information. What these are productive resources, right? Productive resources are factors of production. These, if we can assemble these things and we've got the right idea, we can use them in certain ways to create a business, to solve a problem, to meet a need profitably. That's the essence of what business is. So we're going to talk about these factors of production across in sort of three dimensions. We're going to talk about human, which is people, technological, which is machinery and technology, and financial, which is cash. So this unit deals with those three resources: human resources, technological resources, financial resources. And in essence, that's everything. Now, land, of course, could be related to technology or financial or some sort of inputs. I kind of would put it under technology because for me, technology is anything that we use or can use to change something. Okay. So our focus is going to be on how we use these resources to deliver value for the customer, which means we not only have to look at these three elements, we also have to think about business processes, inputs, some sort of operations, yielding outputs. Now, we're not going to deal with this aspect in this module because we'll deal with business operations specifically at level 4. We'll talk a little bit about it here, but we'll deal with it mainly at level 4. Okay, but in our core business process, we will use these factors of production in such a way that makes sense to deliver our outputs. And you know what? If you've been in a store, if you've been in a restaurant, if you've purchased something online, you have been a customer for some sort of business process or operations using those technology, people, and capital resources. Can I ask you, who among you wants to start their own business or wants to have their own business in the future? Anybody else? Rana, you have? Very good, very good. You do? Excellent. Okay, good, good. So you guys, you kind of understand then what we're talking about. Well, you have to, because if you don't, you know, you're going to find it very difficult. Look, business is not perfect, and no matter who you are, you make mistakes in doing this. But the better we can organize ourselves and do things, the more we can recognize what resources we need, how we need them, when we need them, how we're going to organize them, for what market, with, you know, with what customer, whose needs are X, Y, and Z. That's business in general. Okay, so I personally think that for all of us, we're all going to have several careers, even me, and I'm not older than you guys, because things are changing so fast. So you have to keep reinventing yourself. You've got to keep reinventing what we do. And if we don't, someone or something is going to come along that's going to change the game. So we've got to be continuously looking at these things and understanding the ingredients or the components of business. Okay, I'm just going to skip on a couple of slides here, all right? But I just want to just touch base on this. This is what this particular module is about. So we need to know, what you guys need to know is, know how human resources are managed. So that's the people side. Understand the process of managing physical and technological resources. That's the technology side. And identify ways to access different sources of finance and to understand financial statements, which is the funding side. So those three elements are dealt with across these 4 learning objectives. Know how human resources are managed, understand the purpose of managing technology and resources, physical resources, and understand financial statements and identify ways to access funding to run our businesses. So those are the learner outcomes, which means that the assessment criteria are for human resources: describe how organizations select their employees and what documents are required. So, well, how do organizations do that? How do organizations select their employees? How do we decide who we need? And how do we go about getting them? What do we call that in business? Yeah, by knowing what skills we need, absolutely. And what sort of process do we follow? If you've got a job, you'll have been through this process or a set of processes. We call it recruitment and selection, don't we? So how organizations select their employees and what documents are required, well, what's required in the recruitment and selection process? It starts with knowing what skills we need, But then we've got to go through a way of identifying people and selecting them amongst them. So we'll talk about that. Shortlisting, interviews, and so on. Absolutely. Those are the key components, right? So we're going to talk about that, describe the importance of employability and personal communication skills. We'll talk about communication skills. In fact, we have a whole module on communications. Next up, purpose of meaning of physical and technological resources. Describe the importance of physical and technological resources required in an organization. Sometimes there's a danger that we talk about needing technology. That's not the right way to approach it. What we've got to figure out is what business we're in, who our customer is, what they want, and how do we deliver it. How we deliver it may be based on technology, right? But it should be the driver of answering the question as to what technology we need to bring to bear. And then, of course, finance. How important is money? What do we need it for? Okay. How do we count it? How do we measure funds? How do we measure the use of funds? So these are the things that we're going to talk about in this module. Okay, good. Okay, well, look, first of all, delighted to meet you all. What I'm trying to do is to get you to look at these objectives, these learning outcomes on the left here, and figure out what they mean for you. Because if you can do that, then maybe the rest of the module will make more sense. Okay, so I leave that with you. All right, folks, thanks very much. Bye-bye.